Welcome to US Comics Cast, your HQ for everything comic book related. 60 minutes, 2 topics for the people. I'm Charlie Rivera, the co-founder of US Comics.
Preach, baby, baby, preach. And I am John Rivera, the other co-founder of US Comics. And ladies and gentlemen, let us hear it for that luscious sound that brought us in. Bad Mary themselves. That's right, I'm using the plural. Bad Mary in association with US Comics, and therefore in allegory sentences, US Comics Cast. I know that didn't make sense, but you know what?
It doesn't need to make sense. That's how good the music of the camera's down. The camera's down.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is live. Man down.
That is awesome. Nothing made me happier. The hot track from Bad Mary to start the show. Stick around till the end. We'll have another track for Bad Mary. That's brother
how
May.
Hot that music is. It brought the cameras down right and left.
That's the way to do it. I hope your topic is better prepared than your studio.
All I gotta say is the fix is in. Charlie's already trying to eat up my time, my topic time with some technical bullshit. So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right in with the most important shit that we've had to talk about. And look, some people are gonna say, hey, you know what, John?
You know what?
John, Mr. Rivera, is that really comic book related? And I'll smack them across the grill and say, hey, this mother sucker that I'm talking about now is responsible for some of the greatest comic books that we've had in the last 2 decades. And all I can say is that Mel Brooks, the man, said it best when he said, it's good to be the king. Because Stephen King is living his best life in this most recent decade of existence. Boy, oh boy. And what I'm bringing to the table today is nothing less than HBO's newest sensational series, and that is indeed The Outsider. If anyone listening to the tones of my voice is not yet aware of this newest dope series, The Outsider, then on Sunday nights at about 9 o'clock, give or take, you can probably watch on demand if you want to. Get your booty to the couch, get a nice tub of popcorn, a little slurpy drink to knock down, and get comfortable because the show is great. Have you caught up? Have you started?
I haven't even been able to start yet.
I am done with you already, and we're not even 5 minutes in.
No. Here's the problem.
Couch, and you just sit there and listen. You're non-nerd.
First of all,
son of a bitch.
First of all.
So, anyways,
how dare all of this? How dare you?
And again, this may be a retreading of covered ground to a certain degree, but we have said here on US Comics Cast on a number of occasions, and I stand by it, and this may be the greatest yet example of what we have been talking about, what I've been saying, is the fact that long-form series, especially of the type of stories that Stephen King is expert at telling, at bringing to the masses, is probably far superior at the end of the day for translations, for adaptations of the work. Because if you go back, and I think you would be hard-pressed to disagree, even though I'm sure a couple of jabronis will try to do so.
They'll find a way.
They'll try. They'll yip and yap. But the fact of the matter is that it has been Stephen King's short stories which have been most successfully adapted to movies. And that's because, in my estimable opinion, the content that they need to cover within that, in general, 2-hour window of time is just not that much real estate to cover the amount of ground that Stephen King puts out there with his work. You look at, in a perfect world, and I'm a Stephen King devotee. I will
Acolyte?
read.
You're a
I'll read
Stephen
a
King
menu.
acolyte.
That's it. Well, it's true. I mean, I try not to put my religious affiliations out there, but um,
In Stephen King, we trust.
if he writes a menu, I will read it and I'll analyze it and I'll go over it line by line for what he indeed meant as I knock over my mic. So if he puts it out there, I'm gonna read it. Now this may seem sacrilegious, but The Outsider, the book, which is actually a pretty recent book, it only came out what 2018, 2019.
You would know far better than me.
It came out filler,
Etc., so on.
Again, let's call it 2019, just for argument's sake, early 2019. We'll cover our ass that way.
2018, May 22nd. I'm better at Google than you are.
And again, it's gonna sound funny for me to say, it wasn't great as far as let me rephrase because I think our policy. It wasn't. It was far from my favorite Stephen King work. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Because again, we don't like to talk in those definitive
derogatory terms for Mr. King.
Right. So it wasn't my favorite book. I enjoyed it. A category of Stephen King books, whether like you loved it, whether it wasn't your favorite, whether it fell someplace in the middle. The best analogy, because not
you. You're notorious for no analogies.
It's like Stephen King books are like pizza. There's no bad pizza. I can make a Supreme Court defense for the worst fucking pizza that you've ever had in your life. I'm talking about 3 a.m, open 24 hours a day, college campus bullshit pizza that you get in like Kansas fucking City, a place where there's literally hasn't been an Italian in 25 years. That pizza that's made with like ragu and cheddar cheese on a saltine cracker, that pizza is still better than 99% of the other bullshit that people try to make you eat. Ergo, a Stephen King book that's like, it wasn't my favorite. It's still better than 99% of the trash that's up on the wall when you go to get some buying material that's not a comic. But again, that being said, it was kind of Kansas City 2 a.m. pizza as far as I was concerned. I ate it. It filled me up. But,
at the time, were you like, oh, delicious? It's only in hindsight?
I wasn't doing this shit with my knife and fork and tying the handkerchief around my neck. But that being said, it has translated into a fucking dynamite series.
I mean, second you see Jason Bateman in anything.
It's a novel. It's a full lengthy motherfucker. And it needs a series, a long form, even if you want to call it a miniseries, because it does have a definitive ending. And this goes back to some of the other things that we talked about, like comic book story arcs and the Star Wars and the Marvel movies, so to speak. They're part of a singular entity. Just because you're watching a 2 hour dosage of it, you don't need to analyze every specific single thing. We don't really do that episodically for shows that aren't Sopranos or Westworld or Game of Thrones. So why would we do it elsewhere? The series, Charlie, is great. So again, I'm going to let you run because I know you are a Stephen King fan as well. Not quite as obsessive as me, but you have your other things. So the basic gist of it is, without spoiler free, because this occurs like literally 2 fucking pages in, a murder of a child occurs. No one has been fucking more heinous to children, figuratively speaking.
He fucking hates them. I'm starting to think that's why his kid doesn't use the last name King. It's not this artistic integrity bullshit. It's those hunted.
Of fucking authors. Boy, he is tight in the crotch. and clinging. He's he is rough on kids, man. He's rough. He's rough. That's all I'm saying.
The Gap. We cannot get an endorsement to save our life.
By Stephen King, by Gap Kids, and by association, Banana Republic or Old Navy. But
that's true.
I'm entirely fine with it.
And that pizza you described was literally Lunchables. You described it. The little dumb cracker. Our only sponsorship comes from us. And poor Bad Mary.
Next week, we'd like to introduce our sponsor, Kansas City Pizza. 24 hours, never good.
It's good enough.
It's still pizza. Anyway, so a heinous murder happens of a child. That's rough.
You can't just change tone to like news at 11.
I'm like, but
heinous child.
I'm like the 11 o'clock news, but haha, that was squarely the rabbit. Boy, oh boy, can he jump. On sadder note, 52 children were aborted at 3 years old today.
By a clown.
Yeah.
At the behest of Stephen King.
No one was laughing.
He was super into it. No one was laughing except Stephen King.
In typical Stephen King fashion, a child was murdered horrifically. God bless your face. And you're introduced to a multitude of characters right off the bat, and obviously it's important to start remembering names and the associations, and seemingly the evidence piles up on a particular character. Let's just call him, I don't know, the Little League coach. And literally within the first few pages and the first few minutes correspondingly of the show, the hero, small town cop, for once in like forever, the action doesn't take place in Maine. It actually takes place in Georgia, which is fucking crazy.
It's all new territory. Clown free, but all new territory.
So Stephen King has to kill children in the woods when they're like 7 or 8.
His favorite thing.
So yeah, there seems to be this mountain of evidence pointing the fingers at the Little League coach. So almost immediately in the action, you're the hero cop, kind of curmudgeon-y about it, has the coach very publicly arrested in front of the entire small town at a Little League game. Like, they make a real fucking, show. He really chews up the scene. They arrest this poor son of a bitch, and in the series, the coach is played by Jason Bateman, who's clearly the king of the vampires, so obviously his association with Stephen King was gonna happen sooner or later. You know
how I'm the youngest 34-year-old of all time? It's not true. Jason Bateman has been stuck in young adults
years old.
for the last 81 years.
He looks like he shouldn't be out that late at night without clearing up the fact that his homework is done. Like, he still looks like a child. Anyway.
He's still starring in Teen Wolf 2 for you. You're like, he's a werewolf. I knew it. I called it.
So they arrest this poor guy in front of his family, in front of his own kids, in front of the team, in front of the town. And then if that was immediately, immediately adjacent, they start compiling this kind of like contradictory evidence that there's no fucking way that this guy could have been your guy. So on one hand, you've got blood and fingerprints, fucking witnesses saying, yep, I saw him with the kid, I saw him with the van, I saw this, I saw that, lent him $5, he was here. He's on like small circuit cameras for like strip clubs and shit like that. You're like, it's fucking him. He's right there. He was covered in blood. He got taken to the bus station. He did this, he did that. And then like immediately afterwards, his defense kicks in, and they were like, yeah, but this motherfucker was like an hour away. Here's all this, and again, spoilers. This is where spoilers will kick in.
It's all right. My memory's terrible.
Here's this mountain of evidence that completely take him off the hook. So now people are like, this is not like a Senate trial where people have made up their minds and like won't be shook.
Yeah.
They're like, this what the fuck is going on? So with the exception of his own personal family and the family of the victim, everyone else is like really kind of in a gray zone. They're like, I don't want to believe it, but here's all this evidence. But then again, here's all this shit showing that it's not the case. And then obviously Stephen King does what Stephen King does, and it spills off from there. So
Ghosts.
I don't know. So the show has a very HBO feel to it, like
So it's just like unfettered greatness.
That's definitely the case.
All
So
HBO does is hit.
Like it has the feeling of like a True Detective or The Night of, you know, like those type of like I don't want to call them gritty type, you know, police story type things, but it doesn't.
But it's gritty.
Come across, well, you know what it is? It doesn't come across purely as Stephen King territory, like supernatural, blah blah blah, and then you start getting the supernatural elements just in like little tastes, just a little nibble, a little appetit, you know, just a little something to wet the whistle. Yeah, I love that. That's delicious. It really kind of like sucks you in, and it's almost unheard of. Like you always have the douchebags who are like, oh, this movie or show came out, the book was better. You know what? This is like the one occasion where personally I can say, you know what? I'm pretty sure that I like the adaptation better. Again,
wow.
As much as I love Stephen King, I would give him a kidney. I'm not even joking. And I only have 3 to give. So.
Oh, I have Stephen King on the phone actually. He wants the kidney. He wants both. He wants both though.
It's fine. What could be more Stephen King than wanting both fucking kidneys? And he's
him wanting 12 kidneys from
I'm not even gonna transfer
6 kids.
I'm just gonna eat them in front of your mother. But yeah,
is it bad that I visualize that like super vividly?
And the worst part is like he'll do it outdoors in Maine, like outside of his fucking creepy house that looks haunted. Like, oh my god!
Like thanks, bud.
The cast is just. I mean, it's just an outstanding. Jason Bateman, the cop, is played by Ben Mendelsohn, who you know from like a bunch of things. He can like for a second, he's always the actor. You're like, you have a lisp. I can't quite tell. There's something wrong with my ears. Do you have a little bit of this? But like he's in Star Wars movies and like he's in a bunch of stuff. Fucking Cynthia Erivo, who's like Broadway famous and Oscar nominated and all this jazz. Bill Camp. I mean, the honestly the fucking cast is outstanding. It really is. A bunch of people who are like they're really good in the series, but like I can't picture them from anything else. What else was I gonna say? Yeah, and you know, again, I really stand by. So being as you haven't seen the show, and if I'm not mistaken, you haven't read the book yet, right?
No.
Even our mother, who devours almost anything on paper, she hadn't read it yet, mostly because I didn't buy it for her, and usually
that is how most of her book reading happens.
I usually buy 2 copies of everything Stephen King. But yeah, like I said, if you go down the list, so I'm just gonna carry over into my fundamental. This fucking thing is gonna be on my gravestone because as of yet, until US Comics does something, it's probably what I'm most proud of. And I really stand by it. The fucking adaptations of short stories thus far have made for the best fucking movies. So if I said to you, Charlie, best Stephen King adaptation ever, put you on the spot, I know.
I would say the new It Chapter 1 would be my favorite adaptation of his.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to speak for the semi-washed masses, and I'm going to say that in general, most people would probably say Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, see, I wasn't going to go there. I was going to go with Here's Johnny. I presume that was the one that Stephen King hates the most.
Well,
would of course be the one that's most famous.
Kubrick's The Shining. He hated Kubrick's version of The Shining so much he didn't even want that aesthetic used for fucking for the sequel that also came out recently, I think, which is like only just Doctor Sleep, which is only just now available to kind of watch like at home, because not a ton of
Because no one saw it in theaters.
not a ton of people saw it in theaters, but yeah, so like his yeah, I would stand by and say that most people, I mean, find me somebody who doesn't have the opinion that Shawshank Redemption is one of the best movies they've ever seen. They could most people can quote it all fucking day. That's where their Morgan Freeman impression comes from.
That one role got Morgan Freeman all of his other roles.
I mean, like
There was a penguin.
you can't even look
Penguin.
at a picture of him without
Penguin.
hearing his voice in your head.
That's
And like
true.
the little freckles. But that being said, Shawshank Redemption it wasn't a novel. It was a short story, a novel. Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption was the full title, and it adapted fucking beautifully to the movie
Well,
theater.
I think it speaks to something that I think affects comic books a lot, and comic book movies a lot. Although I do think there's enough connecting fiber, regardless. Again, the gunslinger has been utilized in comic books a decent amount. With that being said, the minute that you have this endless series of issues, when you have Superman has had thousands of comics, there's an almost a burden to fit in what someone who's crafting a script, how do you take all of that and have the greatest hits appear? Whereas if it's something that had a short life, even something like a 6-part miniseries in this new world where comic books are printing money in theaters, at least in theory, because we're about to learn with the new Bloodshot Vin Diesel movie coming out, we're going to learn how much it's comic book movies that do it, compared to like maybe it was just Marvel. But what's interesting, when you take these shorter stories, you get to craft a world that suits the story you're trying to tell. And that's weird to say when you're doing an adaptation, because you're supposed to be doing, okay, you have 6 issues, give me that story. But if you look at any character I'm desperate to see on the silver screen, I have a hard time telling you where to start. How does Valiant make a Shadow Man movie? You first have to decide, are we going classic or are we going contemporary? My money would be contemporary. But that story, the first 6 issues, the first 12 issues, deal with a ton of what happened before.
Right.
And I hate those movies.
The origins, yeah.
I hate origin stories like you read about. I think they're inherently all the same and they're all boring. So when you take a Stephen King short story and you're able to take everything he gave you and then expand it out, that's where you could have a lot of fun with narrative. When you take a full, and let's be honest, Stephen King, he clearly thinks he gets paid by the word, because the guy's not cutting corners with the lengths of some of these books. Again, look at it's a mammoth read. How do you do that? And these last 2 attempts that were very financially successful. Chapter 1 did well and was critically well received. Chapter 2, a lot of critics and a lot of viewers were very kind of unhappy with Chapter 2 by comparison. And it was because they were trying to kind of wrap up this epic story. Are you going to have the Turtle universe gimmick? How much of Stephen King's work that reads really well can adapt really well quickly?
That is the
2
one
hours.
thing that I can, where I can line up with kind of like those voices who are constantly like, well, book is better. Look, a book, a novel, especially a monster like it, 2,000 plus pages, a novel will always, again, the Kansas City Pizza aspect of it, the worst fucking novel you've ever read. Well, Hemingway said there's something good in every fucking piece of shit novel. That's not an exact quote, but you get
I'm
the
saying
idea.
that was a very contemporary
I mean,
take.
that was actually probably not far off from the original quote, but there's the worst fucking novel, you can find something good in it, but a novel, a piece of written fiction will always be able to do certain things that movies cannot, because a novel, prose, literature can put the reader inside of the speaker's mind instantaneously. There, and don't get me wrong, you can do things with voiceovers and talking to yourself and crazy shit like the Joker just showed us. But it's not the same. It's not the same. And you can't take that away from them, but it's really, to me, more about the ground that has to be covered. So when you have so as wonderful, and we'll stick with it as an example because it's something that we spoke about at length here. As wonderful as we both felt that pair of movies were, and I'm so grateful that it was at least for a pair of movies that it got fit into. It would probably have been even better as a series.
It should have been a miniseries again.
If it had been miniseries, if it had been 2 full-length seasons of a show on like HBO, or take your pick now, because you've got Amazon, you have Netflix, you have fucking Disney, which would kind of be tough for Disney fare, but you just get far more. So going way back, and this has nothing to do with Stephen King, but they made Black Sails on Stars, which is not not the highest regarded network for.
Yeah, you know how HBO is. It's not TV. It's HBO. Stars is TV. It's Stars.
Like Stars, like we're cable.
We're expensive.
But
by comparison,
they did that series, the Black Sails series, which was fucking tits from beginning to end. It was just awesome. And I'm loath to admit, it took me far longer to realize than it should have that what I was watching was actually a prequel to Treasure Island, which was one of my favorite fucking books of all time growing up. And I did have the thought that in the 90s or early 2000s, they would have tried to make this whole fucking story in a 2-hour,
without question,
worse, an hour and a half sitting. You know what?
Look at what they tried to do with Game of Thrones for years on end.
Of course.
The Jon Snow movie, like, what are you talking about?
And that's what they have to do. So my greater point is this, that I'm inherently right. Do not even try to fucking step to me. Don't bring it to me, because I will do you like Aaron Hernandez.
Oh, no.
I feel bad about it. Yes,
John.
That doc.
Come on.
Oh, boy.
That's dark for this show.
Stephen King
that's dark.
could not make that shit up, bro.
No, he couldn't. This is all I want to say.
As my time runs out, let me just wrap it up.
Of course.
I'm 100% right in my theory that novels should be almost exclusively fucking long format.
100%.
Something like The Dark Tower. You could make a fucking series.
6 seasons in a movie.
Hey, 6 seasons. Fuck that. Give me 12 seasons. Don't run into the Game of Thrones issue where you try to jam 2 or 2.5 seasons into one final. I lock people up for like the next 2 decades so you can get them done. And also, and this may even be the greater point, creators, even if you are, and this is, you can reference this when it comes our time, Charlie, myself. When it comes time, if you're a creator and you've made something fucking outstanding and somebody else wants to pour money into it and adapt it into a different format, you have to let the reins go, because that's what Stephen King did. And The Outsider is, again, just the example that I'm going to use. The Outsider is an outstanding series off of one of my least favorites Stephen King novels. And it has a lot to do with the fact that Stephen King just wrote the book. Afterwards, he's executive produced the damn thing. It was Richard Price who adapted the screenplay for the series. It's a fresh perspective. It's a new set of eyes.
I want you to remember what you're saying.
Please do.
Because I'm ready to sell out, baby.
You're on the you're on the buzzer. So They had that there's that saying that says, "Don't miss the forest for the trees." And when you're the creator, it's just trees. Like you're fucking in there, you're putting in every grain of
Happy little bush.
wood. Yeah, like exactly. Like no happy accidents. Put a little fucking deer here sipping water. Blah blah blah. When it comes time that your project needs to take on new life, let it go. Have faith that you've chosen wisely for those people to carry your. It's the George Lucas effect, because look at the amazing things that fucking Favreau is doing with shit that Lucas did decades ago, where even Lucas is cradling Baby Yoda.
I mean, that's a W. We have 30 seconds left. I'm going to say it.
I'm done.
That's the real lesson, though, is everyone needs to let go. You hire well, you sell well, and you let it fall where it's going to. It won't always work out. It won't. But movie by committee, show by committee doesn't work. Look, please, everyone out there who's buying properties, who's selling properties, look at The Mandalorian. Really, really look at it. You trust you trust Favreau to do it, and he did it. And if it was Iron Man 2 and not everyone dug it, we tried. We're done. No more Mandalorian. But instead, we got something that's hopefully going to vastly change the way that they make these Star Wars.
I have an Iron Man 2 theory that I'm going to wrap up my time with. I think Iron Man 2 was less than it could have been out of fucking spite. Because Favreau was like, oh, word, I'm not going to end up with Gwyneth Paltrow? All right, fuck you then. Here's Iron Man 2. I hope you enjoy that, folks.
Wow, that is dark.